Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Potential State video. My name is Dr. Assael Romanelli, and today I am going to talk to you guys about what is potential state. A lot of people are asking me, why did you call your institute potential state? Why is the website potential state? What's up with this concept? So in this talk, I'm going to tell you also what is potential state, and then I'm going to tell you why I think everyone should know what it is and have one of these potential states in their lives. I'm going to give a few examples from different spheres where I work, and then I'm going to give you homework to go do it. I'll teach you how to build, maintain, and fortify potential states in your life. So potential state is a concept coined by Donald Winnicott, who's a child pediatrician turned psychoanalyst in the first half of the 20th century. And he was he belonged to the independent stream of psychoanalysis and Freud and those people, where he kind of had his own view. And he was very focused on child development and play and subjectiveness. And potential state comes from this idea. So the baby is born into a subjective omnipotence, thinking that he or she creates everything. He just cries, he gets a pacifier, he gets food. He or she believes they're the center of the universe. Slowly, the good enough mother, the good enough parent, that's a Donald Winnicott phrase, frustrates him and kind of takes him out of this omnipotence into the objective reality. But in between those two places, there's a space called potential state, or potential space, or transitional state, transitional space, really depends, but I'm going to call it potential state. And that's the space between reality and fantasy, where the child can hold both realities. The me and the not me are together. My fantasy and the reality are together. And I'll give you an example. When Tzach, my 6-year-old son, when he's pretending he's a security guard at home and he locks things up here with his pretend keys and he doesn't let us in and he writes us these passes. So he knows he's not a security guard, but he also thinks he is. He's maintaining both of them. He's able to hold that tension. Or a different example, Laila, my 4-year-old, so she has a lot of dolls. She calls them their babies, and she's their mother. And she used to get them dressed and take care of them and change their diapers. And she knows they're babies. She knows they're dolls, but she really thinks they're babies. And she's expecting all of us to be part of this play, this game. And the few things about transitional state or potential state is there's no point to it. And I want to say something about game and play. So game, like Monopoly and chess, there's winners or losers. There's a point to it. There's rules and guidelines. And play is a state of mind, is a beingness, if you will. You can play a game with no play in it, right? Our lives are a game, our work, deadlines. We have to hand things in, make an income, pay the mortgage. That's a game. Our life is a game. Do we include play in it? Once you put play inside the game, that becomes creation, that comes free play, that comes love, that comes abundance. But we'll talk about that in a different talk. By the way, that idea is from Stephen Nachmanovich's amazing book called Free Play. So one is that there's no point, it's play. Two, it's kind of limited by time and space. It has some sort of boundaries in a certain location, a certain time, in a certain space. It's not like a psychotic break where it's just like, I don't know where I am. And there's a wide range of emotions. Like, people think that it's just fun. No, it's like when Lada's playing with her babies, she gets angry with them, she talks to them, she scolds them, she loves them. It's a very visceral, wide range of experiences. So actually, in potential state, there's the child is experiencing a whole range of feelings and emotions and imagination and creativity. And they can see things and they hear things, and they're like in that, they're talking to themselves. So that is a crucial idea. So that's potential state in the developmental sequence of it. But as we grow older, as adults, if we do not have that, if that potential state is gone because of reality, abuse, natural disasters, whatever, if I had to grow up too fast and I lose that, we become adults that are very rigid, that are very concrete, that have no imagination, no play, no creativity. Because as adults, in the potential state, that's where we experience awe and wonder and silliness and imagining outside of the box and thinking creatively. In fact, imagining different realities for myself. And we all know people that are very concrete and rigid. It's very hard for them to play. It's very hard for them to to soften a little bit the perception of reality and step into a transitional space, potential space, in and out. And I want to give you guys a few examples. I'm going to start one with, I supervise therapists. I train them in couple and family therapy. And I'm working with a guy, and he, a very smart guy, super intelligent. And we start working together, and he starts bringing cases. This was about 2 or 3 years ago. And I say, okay, so let's just role play this. So you're giving me the situation. Let's role play this. I'll be the therapist. You be the client. Let's go. And he just looked at me. He's like, what do you mean? I mean, so I said, let's play this out. Let's kind of see how he or she would answer in it. And he couldn't step out of that. He couldn't step out of himself and just wear a hat of somebody else, in this case his client, and just play. Now, the second I say to someone, let's role play it, I'm inviting them into a potential state. And this is a guy that grew up in a kibbutz, in a socialist kind of commune, in the 60s and 70s, where everyone was the same, working from a very young age. I mean, so it's a personality and also the way he grew up, right? And throughout our work together, it was always hard for him. Now, this translated not only in role playing, this was also like, let's think out of the box. What could help this couple or this family? And it was hard for him to imagine that. And I realized, as helping professionals, therapists, educators, rabbis, social workers, whatever, we always have to be more open than our clients. Our clients are coming with a certain narrative, with a certain perception of the world. Okay, in narrative therapy, they call it their script, their problem-saturated narrative or plot. And our job is to help them see or imagine a counterplot, a different story. Have you ever thought of doing this like that? So we have to be always more playful, more in a potential state than the people we work with. And that goes back to Winnicott, who says a therapist who cannot play cannot be a therapist. But we can do cut and paste to anything. A parent that cannot play cannot be a parent. Anybody working with anybody, right? If we're working with people, we have to learn how to play. And play not in the sense of monopoly, not in game, but in play, potential state play. So here's an example of someone who is a therapist or is striving to be a therapist or is doing that transition into therapy. And he is encountering the limits of his potential state. By the way, feel free to write any questions you have, and I'm happy to answer that as we go along. The second example I want to give is from workshops. I do a lot of workshops in Israel and abroad. And there's always that moment when I say, okay, let's stand up and stand in a circle. Just the motion of standing up and standing in a circle, and there's always this little krechts and this little, oh. Some people are like, yay, we get to play. But a lot of times, whatever the profession is, and I've done this from every stream of life, every age, every profession, most of the circle will be like, like there's this, I don't want to step out. I don't want to step out of the comfort zone into the potential state. It's almost like I can feel that energy shift as we're standing up, as there's an invitation. Because people are realizing that we're not going to be sitting and talking left brain intellectual. There will be some sort of play. Your body will be involved. And the second the body's involved, which means I need to move. And if I need to move, that means I can't stay rigid. I can't stay one place. I have to move. I have to play in the sense of I'm going to have to move around the space. I'm going to have to show and be seen. And that, for a lot of people, raises anxiety. But once again, I'm inviting you to see this as not as being an introvert or timid or embarrassed or low self-esteem. I want to actually see this time as the transition into potential state. I want to give a different example from my training. So part of being a couple and family therapist, at least in Israel, is you need to do 60 hours behind a one-way mirror where your colleagues are looking at you. And that is obviously anxiety provoking because you're being watched by between 8 and 10 people, and every single thing you're doing is recorded by cameras and a microphone. And at any given moment, you can be called. There's a telephone in your room where you can be called, and the supervisor can say, that last question, mix it up or whatever. And this was going on for a year. And one of the people that was watching me was a very, very strict, classically trained psychologist. And the whole year, he did not like what I was doing. Because I was improvising, I was being playful, I used to joke with the clients. role playing, switching chairs, sitting where they're sitting, going with metaphors. The Wizard of Oz, and we had this whole discussion who's which character, and I remember there was one time toward the end of the year where he said to me, Assael, I really like what you do there this past session. I was like, really? I don't even remember what he was talking about. And then he goes, us people, like therapists or whatever, we're almost like human beings. We're almost like human beings. And he was that serious. And I didn't even know how to react to that, but that sentence stuck with me. That's been about a decade ago. And I'm realizing if I'm looking at it out of that prism, it's like, yes, we are all humans. But I guess for that psychologist, something about being in a role means I need to be very strict. I need to not be human. I need to be a function. I need to be an object and not a subject, a full person. And it was hard for him to step into that play. In fact, I think most of our clashes there it was hard for him to enter a potential state. And a lot of times when I see kids, even in the playground or in different places, you can see which kids are growing up with a potential state and which ones their potential state is becoming very, very narrow. And I want to give an example of that from the clinic. A while back, I was working with a mother and a daughter doing family therapy, and the mother was a drug addict, a former drug addict who was abused as a child, abused in her marriage, just, welfare, like the whole works, and her daughter. Now, this is a woman, so the mother itself obviously has no potential state. She was just trying to survive. And in fact, the way she would survive the harsh condition was to escape into drugs, right? But drugs is not a potential state because it's between reality and fantasy. And I can hold both of them. Her daughter, okay, growing up in that reality, I meet her. She's young. She's in her early 20s. But she is so in control. She cannot move. Her face barely, like there's barely any affect. She's holding herself tight. I try to talk to her a little play on words. What do you do? She's so concrete. It's like you're talking to like an 80-year-old serious accountant. And then finally, after an hour and a half of a session, she suddenly breaks down and she says, you know how many times I've wanted to let go? You know how many times I wanted just to let loose and escape? But I knew that if I escape, I'd either end up in drugs or in prostitution, and I didn't want those. And I think when she said that, that kind of split through my heart, and I said, like, that's how it feels when a child does not have a potential state, where he or she cannot afford to do that, where there's no space to do that. And once again, I'm reminding you, the parents create the potential state for the children. All the children are born with a capacity for potential state. The question is, what do the parents do about it? So back in the 50s, when Winnicott wrote about it, he stressed the importance of the transitional object, right? The blankie, the teddy bear, the thing to let the kid, that symbolizes the mother, that symbolizes the transition. He's not alone. He has someone to talk to, yada, yada, yada. But I think if I'm thinking about this in today's terms, I'm saying the kid needs a space where his transitional space, where his potential state will be respected, will be actually encouraged, where we can take care of that little space and make sure as an adolescent, it doesn't get squished like a butterfly. Because if that child loses that potential state, we're ending up with a very rigid person. I want to give you an example of that. I teach a weekly playback theater class. Playback theater is improv based on people's stories. And about 5 years ago, walks into my door a nurse, emergency room nurse, who's never done any theater in her life. Very concrete, very, very shy. She comes in and she says, I need to do something else. I have no social life. She has friends, but she's single, late 30s, mid 30s. We start working together, and it is extremely hard for her to play a role. So it's hard for her to raise her voice. It's hard for her to use her body. It's hard for her to do anything to do with play. And then she says, like, as an offhand remark, she says, I haven't taken a day off in 4 years. She hasn't taken a day off in 4 years, which means, now think about it, she's working in a life or death situation. There's no play in the emergency room, okay? Or is there? But in fact, she's so in concrete, she's so in reality, in the objective reality, there is no play. She cannot take a day off. If she takes a day off, the hospital will collapse. She will collapse. People will be dying. And it took her 2 years to slowly open up. I remember 2 years later, for a Purim party, for like a kind of a Halloween party, she wore a dress, a sequence dress. And that was, for her, the craziest thing she's ever done. It takes her another 2 years to start dating. And it's toward the end of the 4th year that she finally was able to actually say, I'd rather spend my time with my boyfriend than in this class. Now, if I'm reflecting, that's a 5-year process from if I haven't taken a day off in 4 years to I'm choosing to do something else. That's good for me. That's where I can express different shades of myself. And I want to give one last example and then a few things, and then I'm going to see your questions. So this evening I was playing a board game with my son. Right? Now, this is the irony and the hypocrisy of all us helping professions, right? We're preaching for presence and play and see the kid and his level and play on the carpet and eye level, but we're exhausted. We're exhausted and we just want the day to end. And we are so not present and so not playful, and the potential state barely exists. So my daughter falls asleep and I'm playing with my son, and I promised him we'll play this board game, and we're playing this board game, and I'm just like, yalla, okay, let's do it. Yes. Oh, I only got 4, you get 6. And then at a certain point, maybe also because I was thinking about this talk I was going to do now, I said, where's Lady Luck? Where's Lady Luck? He was killing me in the game. Where's Lady Luck? Why isn't she with me? And he says, no, Lady Luck's with me. And we started talking about Lady Luck. And then I said, you know what? I'm gonna kiss the die. The die was in one of those pop-up things. In fact, here it is. I'll show it to you. So there's this little pop-up thing, right? So I'm like, Lady Luck. And then, I'm going to kiss you. So I start, I kiss you. I'm kissing the dice. And he starts cracking up. And suddenly I got it. And from that moment on, we were like taking turns kissing. And then we start whispering, I need a 6. Oh, it's a 5. Damn. And then suddenly the game became play. And he got a kick out of it. And suddenly Lady Luck is the 3rd player in this game. And it was so refreshing, and the quality of the energy changed. And I was suddenly present. And then he says to me, can you play another game? And of course I'm going to play 2 more games because I'm actually having fun, because I entered a potential state, because I'm kissing a dice and I'm talking to Lady Luck. And I'm asking her to get me 6s. And that doesn't make sense, but that's exactly what we need to be doing. So in fact, Tzach, my son, felt that shift from I'm in the objective reality of like, it's 7:15, I need you in bed because I'm exhausted, to there's a Lady Luck here. If we whisper to her, she's going to give us 6s. Now, why was he laughing? Because he knows there's no Lady Luck. He knows this is a joke. He knows this is our imagination, but he's playing along. And I think one of my hypotheses is, why do people have a lot of kids? Because they want a connection, a direct line with potential states. So kids from age 4 to 8, 9, 10, they're there. And we're just like at it. We just want to go back there. Right? So we like when our kids, like on one hand, we're going, why is she talking to every tree she sees? And why is every leaf on the floor so crazy for her? But we love that because we forgot that. In fact, they're our ambassadors. They're our teachers for play. And in this case, I initiated it with Tzach, but I can think of dozens of them, of just for example, if I go back to Lala, like there's always babies with clothes on in our house. Like the doll, she dresses the doll with her clothes. Like that's such a potential state. And I would have never thought about that. But then we'll talk about what should she wear? What should the baby wear tomorrow? So those are just a few examples. And I think I'll take some questions, and then I'm gonna give you guys some tips on how you can build potential state. And so please, if you have any questions, hit me now. Okay, so how do you learn to play? Whoa, how do you learn to play? Oh my God, that's a big one. I think play and potential state are interrelated, because play, or at least Nachmanovich's description of play, a state of being, right? an awareness, softening of reality can only exist inside a potential state. And if we think about our life as one long game, how can we start seeing it more and more as a play? Which means, and you know what, I'm just going to dive into what I was thinking, like the way you can create potential state in your personal and professional life. I'm also going to write that down in the comments. So first, set a time and space for it. Potential state needs to be limited in time and space. Start small, 10 minutes, 20 minutes with your kids, with your partner, with your colleagues in a meeting, or like call a potential state meeting. Okay. 2, have like a kind of an awareness, whether it's explicit or implicit, the mistakes are welcome. This is a place where you will not going to be your most amazing, impressive self, where you can be a little bit silly. Don't take yourself so seriously. And that needs to be kind of either explicitly or implicitly agreed. Where in this space, I can be different things. I can be silly, I can be serious, I can talk to Lady Luck, I can go, oh, I can be jealous, I can be angry, I can do everything I want, and I won't be judged for that. Find explicitly or implicitly, make sure this is a space where people match you, in the sense of where people, yes, and as we say in improv, they take what you're saying and they build on it. They're not going to be like, oh, wow. They'll be like, yeah, let's both play with this. Let's play with this. Let's go somewhere different with this. And I think in her book, Psychodrama for Therapists, I think her name is Susan Levinson. She talks about our clinic, but take this to whatever, our office needs to be everything. It needs to be a submarine, a spaceship, an office, a kitchen. It needs to be a place where we can play. So in 1 minute, we need to be able to open up and to say yes and to these different energies. And I'm not just talking about our kids. I'm talking about our colleagues, our friends. For a moment, I can go from being very serious, talking to my friend, to suddenly cracking a joke, to suddenly thinking about this, to blowing his mind over there. So it's I guess it's giving a permission and having consent, or having an implicit or explicit agreement or contract that we are going to soften our perception of reality a little bit and play. And you can always see that also. You can feel environments where you can't make a wrong move. Everything is super tight. And usually the sentence you can say to yourself, this is not brain science. Like, people are not going to die if I say this or if I try something different. And even if I go back to that ER, to the nurse that was in my group, when she would act in medical scenes, she would be like super realistic and super concrete. But I think what happened to her through the years is that she still was serious, but something about her was more playful. She didn't see her job as like, my life equals my job. And she could take more and more days off. And she'd sometimes come in a little bit late because she could, because she softened the reality of working in an emergency room. So I think if you take those four ideas, limited in time and space, mistakes are welcome, you can be silly and playful, people match you. If you put those 4 together, explicitly and implicitly, that's how you create potential states. And actually, that's how you also learn how to play. But I think I'm going to do a different video about play. Some practical examples of what parents can do to allow the potential state in their children. So I was asking, so how can I encourage and maintain? So if we go back 40 years ago, Winnicott would say transitional objects. Don't say that the teddy bear is stupid and silly and throw it away. That little blankie that Charlie Brown always had, or Snoopy, I don't remember. Like, even if it's disgusting, don't throw it away. Don't put it in the wash, because that's what they need. I think I would say is, you need to be playful. They need to be seeing you in different self states and different energies. They need to be seeing you talking to yourself. They need to be seeing you singing suddenly or doing a little dance move. I'll give you an example. One of the things I love about my wife, Galit, is anytime one of us dances, or if I do a little move, or like, she'll always say, "Alzamen," like don't just show us, like, dance, like, give it, be there. Like, every dance move gets a yes and more of that. Like, there's an invitation for that. Like, go for that dance move. Don't just do a little, don't just signal it, give it. And I think if kids see their parents in a potential state where suddenly they burst out in song, suddenly they high five, suddenly they do a monkey, suddenly they don't take themselves too seriously. Or they suddenly talk to someone on the street, like they ask the supermarket clerk, what's her story? Or have a nice day. Or did you notice that the oranges are super orange? Like if they see that you're connected to your potential state, then that's an invitation for them to also go there. So that would be top down, by modeling it, by enabling it. Easier to do when you have smaller kids, because with a teenager, it's going to be harder for you to talk to yourself in the middle of the street, and he or she's going to actually be embarrassed by it instead of saying, wow, cool. Like if you kiss the dice with a 17-year-old, I don't think that's going to be such an invitation, but in fact, I don't know. You should try it at home. The bottom up example I would give is when they are doing that, look for them and yes and them. Yes and in improv means I see their offer, whatever they're doing, I'm accepting and I'm building on top of that. So for instance, I'll give an example. Lila had a birthday, and so she got this little kete, this little flower thingy with lights. And she didn't want to take it off for bath time. And now obviously she's not going to put it, battery is in the water. But then I said, you know what, let's do a party in the bath. Let's turn off all the lights and hang this little crown on the next to the bath. So she wants to be in this because she feels like, I don't know what. I'm yes, Annie. I'm taking that crown, taking it off, turning that bath into party in the bath. Party in the bath. And since then, it's kind of become a thing. Every so often, she wants party in the bath. We take the nightlight, we stick it in the electricity, we turn off all the lights. She takes a bath in the party in the bath. So in fact, for parents, what we can do, if it's a top-down process, you look for those entry points into potential state and you match them and enlarge them. You do a little song, say more. Okay? They're talking to a teddy bear or whatever. What do they think about that? Let's have a conversation. What does the teddy think about this food? Yeah, it's weird. I doesn't like spaghetti. That's crazy. You know, I like spaghetti. And then, I'm going to actually talk to the teddy bear himself. I'm going to actually talk to him, or just even like a microphone. Like sometimes just like, what did you say? Or like a lot of times, or like even like you start saying things in rhymes because it sounds sometimes like you want to go double up on the signs. It doesn't really matter as long as they can see that we can go in and out of reality. And I think in a potential state, you'll notice that there's not only a vitality, it's not just silliness, but it's a wide range of emotions. And if we connect this to anger, to the previous video, if I'm in a potential state, then going angry does not mean that everything is going to dissolve and get ruined. I know that there's going to be another day. I know there's going to be play after this. So this is a little departure from potential state. If you wanted to objective reality, but we're going to go back. The game doesn't end. The play doesn't end. And I think you meet these people that have lost the zest for life, that have lost that playfulness, which they've actually lost potential state. In fact, I think a lot of them, I'll find them coming in. They'll be looking for the improv workshops, for the playback theater workshops. They'll be coming to the shows. A playback theater show, by the way, is an improvised show based on people's stories where people from the audience come on stage. So imagine somebody raising their hand. Why would they raise their hand? Because they want to be seen, because they want to be part of the show. And I usually say, I want to invite people that have never told a story before in a performance. And what you're going to get are shy, timid, introverts, and actually maybe also extroverts, but people that suddenly are okay with their story. They have this plot, right? Problem-saturated plot, and they give it to us, and we create a counterplot. So actually they're inviting us, or they're inviting themselves, or they want to have a taste of that play, of that potential state. Okay, let me see. What else? Yes, and how do we create those safe environments? We said, I'll just say one thing about yes, and maybe that's a different video. You do yes, and when you want to co-create, when you are lonely and you actually want to allow people into your life. So yes, and is the first rule of any improv workshop you will ever go to anywhere in the world. That's like a universal thing. But that is like, it needs to be something I want to do with other people. And I feel like for a lot of people, and also for myself, like once a week, I teach for 6 hours playback theater. And like for people who've been with me for 5 years every single week. And it's kind of become like an anchor for us for potential state. Like once a week for 3 hours, we get to be everything. We get to be victims and assaulters and bankers and bank robbers and therapists and children and women and men and elderly, ghosts, God, our dead parents, or other people's dead parents. We get to play all of that. And we have an open ritual and a closing ritual. And that is framed. And for that 2.5 hours, that is, for me, that is mental health. Mental health is the ability, this is Moreno, Jacob Levy Moreno, the founder of psychodrama. He says mental health, the ability to react in a new way to old situations, okay? To adapt in new ways to old situations, in the sense of we're practicing the ability to be in different places, to be different people. And if you think about that, most people repress. If I'm thinking when I was living in London, right? All these high-powered executives that come the weekend, they just drink the whole time. They escape reality. That's not potential state. How can we have pockets of potential state within our reality, within our routine? I don't have to wait for the weekend. I don't have to wait for that vacation in Thailand, and then I can let go and be myself and play and not take it seriously. No, that's actually a recipe for burnout, depression, loneliness, burdens of life, anxiety. What's anxiety? I'm in objective reality, way too much. There's no potential state. So yes. Let's see, Lila says, I feel like that. I hate playing, can't dress up and can't play board games. I can't be silly. I feel so much more creative. I feel so much creative energy locked up. Please give me practical tips. Okay, so I hope that the 4 comments, I'll also write this on your comments, but I think what you need to find is look for people who don't take life too seriously, who can imagine beyond what they're seeing. If you need, go to a kindergarten, go volunteer at the local kindergarten and just play a little bit. Find a child, a niece, a nephew, your own kid, the neighbor's kid, and play with them. If that's too awkward for you, see if there's any class or anything, any group that has anything to do with something that's artistic. If you think about it, art belongs to potential state, in the sense of it's something between reality and fantasy. You know how they always say that when you go to a museum, so art is what happens, like that's the picture and this is me and this is the art, the space. So maybe we can reframe that as that's the potential state. I'm seeing something, it's striking my imagination, I'm having a dialogue in my mind with it. So perhaps art, which is basically an interpretation or reflection of reality, could be seen as a potential state space, whether it's visual art. For me personally, I more believe in performance arts, movement, singing, dance, acting, because I feel like that I have to take more of a risk. When I'm just looking at arts, I can be in my mind. It's all right, I'm entering a potential state in my mind, but for like what you're describing here is actually, no, I want to step into this. I want to be inside that experience. And I want to interact in that. And that's how I practice the potential state muscle. And imagine after 4 years of doing different characters, of playing different things. So when somebody comes into the emergency room, she has a flexibility, this woman. So this creative energy it's like a gym. You have to practice it somewhere, and then slowly it's going to saturate into the other parts of your life. And slowly there's a microphone, and slowly you're kissing Lady Luck and talking to her about that. And slowly you can role play or something in a clinic. Or I want to give an example, and I know this is going to sound kind of weird. I was in the supermarket yesterday, and I reached the line. I don't say a Superman, the supermarket thing, beep, 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 beep. And she was new, and she had she was being how do you call it when someone's coming into your job, and she's getting kind of the training, the in-work training, and she was clicking. She had these tap-on nails, these glued nails, and she was tapping on it. And her supervisor was saying, use a pen so your nails don't break. Okay. And I don't know why I was fascinated by that. And I started asking, I've always wondered, why do cashiers in supermarkets in Israel, why do they use the pen? Why do they go like that? And we just started talking about that for maybe a minute. And for a moment there, I like, because usually just people say, how much does it cost? Here's my credit card, right? Very objective reality. But there's a little pocket. Now, I wasn't trying to be playful. I was just curious. And I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to kind of meet her there. And she started smiling. And then her supervisor says, yes, you know how many nails I broke since I started working here? And we kind of opened this little thing about nails and supermarket cashiers. And what do they do about that? And I think like for me, and then we said goodbye. And obviously there was a warm smile because I saw her. She wasn't just an object. I don't think it was like a Buberian I thou, but it was a more subjective play space. It was a potential state. And I walk out of that encounter and it just felt good. I just felt good. And now that I'm reflecting on it, and this is a broadcasting live, my mom always did that. My mom, wherever we'd go, she would talk to the cashier, the taxi driver. She would always be interested. And these people would tell her these things. You know, me and Galid, my wife would call it to do a nachinoam. My mom's name's achinoam. Like, you just did an achinoam with that supermarket cashier. And I just, now that I think about it, if I'm going back to the question of how do you teach kids or how do you train kids or how do you make sure that kids have it, you model it. She modeled it. This is really interesting. I never actually thought about this. She modeled it for me and I never even thought about that. She obviously didn't see it as potential state, but she would encounter people and talk to them and expand the conversation, expand the interface, more than just give and take, more than just the I-it interaction. Okay. Wow. Thanks for that question. That was awesome. Can one be too much in potential state play? Is it wrong to call the same thing? And if there can be too much, what is the problem? Lack of grasp of reality or compromising one's real welfare? That's a great question. Thank you, Rebecca. Hi, good to see you as well. Can you be too much? Well, I think it depends like this. Are you running away because it's hard for me to stay harsh and in the external reality? Am I running away? Like, extreme example, drugs, okay? Drug abuse or running away to something that's considered play, but actually it's not play anymore. I'm not in a potential state. I'm just running away from something. If I'm obsessive about it, if I can't afford to lose it, if it becomes like a game for me, like I have to talk to every single person I meet, I have to keep playing my guitar now all day, or then I think that we're losing that. And then I think that is turning play into escapism. And I'm reminding you, we want to hold that sweet spot in between. And potential state without boundaries is hard. It becomes chaos. Potential state play, this is kind of coming up for me live. I need to think about it more. So they're not the same thing, but I think they're very, very interrelated. And if there can be too much, what is the problem? Lack of grasp of reality or compromising one's real welfare and well-being? Well, assuming that you're not in an altered state of consciousness because you've taken some sort of drugs or alcohol, so there's no physical danger for yourself, I don't know if there's a problem. I think I'd be more interested in the quality of the environment you're with, like the quality of the relationships around you. Okay, if someone is I mean, when you're in potential state, there's a sense of we're welcome, come join us. It's not a kind of an exclusion kind of energy. It's more, come in, let's play. Let's talk about nails and nail and supermarket cashiers. And theoretically, if there'd be a woman behind me, right, in line, she could have said, well, you know, my nails and da-da-da-da-da. So I don't think it's a lack of grasp of reality. It would be more of a sense of you'd be losing that co-creative togetherness, or the communitas. Communitas is a sense of like we're sharing in something. And for moments, I love that the concept of communitas. We'll talk about it when we talk about improvisation more. But it's the idea that transient moment where people are in a liminal space together, and it's for a moment or for a day or for a minute, and it's gone. Like I always give the example of the moment where the lights go off just before the movie, and all of us in the audience are sharing that moment. That's communitas. So perhaps potential state also has a quality of communitas where we're together in this for now. Everyone's welcome. We're going to be matching. We're going to be yes-anding. And I guess that's what I would say. That's the real danger. If you take it too far, you're not bringing people in. You're just kind of drifting off into your own world, which sometimes is good. Again, it depends what you want. Sometimes people don't want potential state. They just want to escape. They just want to turn their mind off. And that's also fine. And it's interesting, now that I think about it, one more comment, then I'll take more comments, is that's the difference between one-person improv, or we call this spontaneity. Spontaneity is when I'm just doing what I want, my impulses. Improvisation is already me being spontaneous, but interacting with a cup, with a microphone, or with another human. Okay, and that already requires me to be open to the other. So in fact, there's a dual focus here in improvisation and play. All right. So when Lila's playing with her babies, she's interacting with them. But when we're talking about potential state within people, I want to have that dual focus. I want to be in my play, but I also want to have the other person with me there. I hope that was clear. Check out, okay, beatboxing, one more potential state. So that's going to be a different video when I'm going to beatbox. I'm happy to do a video about how to rap. The basic trick is just keep practicing. So if I want to conclude, unless anybody else has questions, and I'm not seeing anybody else asking questions, is as adults, we need to make sure that we can create and maintain a basic level or sometimes of a potential state. First of all, for our mental health, to prevent anxiety or to manage anxiety. Wait, one more question. Do any potential state first to reach second order change or second order change? All right. I feel like we need to talk about first and second order change in a different talk. And to introduce this now would be kind of another thing. So please remind me this and we'll talk about this either separately or I'll do another talk definitely about first and second order change. So thank you for that. So again, as adults, we need potential state to alleviate a little bit or keep in check our anxiety, prevent burnout, maintain wonder and awe and belief and love and creativity and curiosity and approachableness. Alleviates a little bit of the loneliness and of the harsh reality of the world we live in. Like for instance, in my Facebook feed, there's so much about the corruption in Israel. I have to turn it off. I can't look at it after 8 o'clock at night or else I can't fall asleep. The harsh reality is too much. It's just too much for me. So I'm saying this as a way, so potential state is, first of all, it's mental health for us adults. B, second reason, it's enabling our children, our colleagues, our loved one to also maintain and increase their own capacity for potential state. I'm modeling it first for my mental health, but I'm actually inviting people, I'm raising people in a space where they can maintain their potential state. And if we believe that humanity needs, what makes us human and not animals, what separates us is our capacity to imagine, our prefrontal cortex, right? Our imagination, our wonder, our awe, our belief. So if we want to make people more human, if we believe that humanity needs a good dose of potential state, so we can kind of move away from conflict and wars and hate, bigotry, racism, misogyny, all those things, and then we need to also create potential states in our personal, professional lives through the 4 points that I've said, and I'll write them down later. And I want to say to you guys, I think one of the reasons I'm doing these videos right now, or this podcast, this will become a podcast, is I believe that these are things that people need to hear and need to practice. So it's not just listening and saying, oh, that's a good idea, but go out and try it out. That's the only way you can work on those muscles. And I'm happy to, answer any questions or thoughts or comments later. I want to thank all of you for coming on this little journey. I hope this talk was kind of a little bit of a potential state. I think for me, if I'm reflecting on it live, it has to be a little bit spontaneous. It has to include things from my personal life. It's dipping in and out of books, into my personal life, into beatboxing. That is potential state. And I want to say that perhaps this talk also is modeling a little bit how does that look like if you practice it enough years, if you try it, if you believe in it, if you think this is actually help. So I'm thanking all of you. Go play, do it, and tell me how it went. Until next time, bye-bye.